So let's get this out of the way right now, yeah? Predator 2 is the best sequel in the series. Lance and I will fight you if you say otherwise. Honestly, there are times when I'm more in the mood to watch this one than the 1987 original.
You son of a bitch.
And that's saying something, as Predator is one of the greatest sci-fi action films of all time. It's right up there with Aliens, honestly. Look, Lance defended it a long time ago, although we joke it needs less defending and just more appreciation. But what happens after that? Well, the Predator license has tons of comics, toys, novels, video games, and other assorted merchandise. But if you take out its clashes with the Xenomorph, it only has 4 total movies over 35 years. Predators from Shane Black is fun, but very flawed, with a ton of behind-the-scenes issues on top of the on-screen ones. And the 2 AVP movies are 1, not great, followed by just plain bad. 2010's Predators is never going to be discussed above 1 or 2, but I think it gets unfairly forgotten and sandwiched between the AVP movies and what is the worst Predator sequel. Predators opens with a hot start. One of our main characters, Royce, awakens while he's falling to the ground from the sky. He's wearing a parachute, but nevertheless has no idea why he's midair. Royce is played by Oscar winner Adrien Brody, who really wouldn't be one of the first actors to come to mind when thinking of action heroes fighting a predator. While he would have action-adjacent roles in more than a handful of projects, this is the one where he would be the lead. To be fair, while I have some issues with the final act of the movie, Brody more than proves himself while being much smaller than Arnold or his contemporaries in the action space. Royce lands and slowly discovers that there are others like him that have fallen out of nowhere.
I woke up in free fall.
Same.
You have a cartel assassin, a member of Spetsnaz, IDF, RUF, Yakuza, a San Quentin prisoner, and a doctor?
I'm trapped in a parachute in a fucking tree!
Man, won't you shut the fuck up?
Oh, thank God.
The cast really is a fun group, with Danny Trejo, Alice Braga, Mahershala Ali, Lawrence Fishburne, Walton Goggins, and Topher Grace.
I'd say we were chosen.
That's quite the mishmash of people, and interestingly enough, when the movie was made, the biggest stars would have been Fishburne and Brody, with an interesting comeback story from Grace, with this movie only being a few years removed from the disastrous Spider-Man 3.
You made a judgment call. You gotta see it as it is.
A few breakout roles and a couple Oscars later, and I'd argue the biggest 2 actors here are Goggins and Ali. As the group slowly moves through the jungle to find a way out, they realize that not only are they nowhere any of them have ever been, but they aren't even on Earth anymore.
Well, between that and the sun,
What about the sun?
hasn't moved since we got here.
With none of them knowing why they are there, they press on only to find a bunch of traps set by a dead soldier.
Oh, shit.
They barely make it out before getting ambushed by a pack of predator dog pig things. It's in this first stretch of movie where I have a couple of my very few issues with the film. The first one is when Royce, who figures out everything going on throughout the entire movie and is quite adept, chooses to ignore the red flags of Topher Grace's Edwin.
Wouldn't take more than one scratch, cause total paralysis.
He recognizes the old game of one of these things is not like the others, one of these things just doesn't belong, and does nothing.
They're all heavy hitters. He doesn't belong.
And to nobody's surprise, Edwin's a serial killer. Predators knew what they were doing with their selections. The other issue I have here is that the hunting dogs just don't do anything for me. I don't think they look particularly good, and their inclusion of a standard hunting technique just doesn't land for me. Give the predators their own unique way of doing things rather than using conventions of the human race in terms of hunting. The hunting scene does give us our first piece of real action in the movie, and it does a good job of separating the characters and having them use their ammo, as Royce so astutely notices.
Everybody do a shell count.
Wait. There are only 7 of us.
Danny Trejo's cartel member is the first to fall, and while we don't see it, we get the aftermath that includes one of the best scenes in the whole movie. The predators kill him off screen and use his body as a trap and replicate his cries for help to lure the rest of the group in. The group recognizes it and coldly decides to walk away, though not before Isabel puts a bullet in him to make sure. It's shot great, where you don't actually know he's dead until the camera pans all the way around to the front, while all our heroes see is his back. They follow tracks that lead them to a camp where they finally find out what's after them. One of the predators is actually chained to a post. Could be as punishment, could be as a lure, but either way it gives the actively hunting predators the edge. We have seen one predator attack Arnold and his team, and a group of them confront Danny Glover at the end of the second film, but this is actually the first time we get a group hunting on film. And yes, I'm only referring to the solo outing Predator films. We had a lot of inspirational material between the video games, comic books, and those glorious Kenner toys of the 90s, but it was nice to see them in a proper film. We get the Berserker, Tracker, and Falconer, monikers given in the credits and thankfully never used on film, and they're bigger and meaner than the tied-up Predator. You get all the trappings here that we've come to expect, with the spear, plasma launcher, etc., and even get to see them work with Ali getting an early exit from the film. The gore in this film is hit or miss, with some of it being silly, like when Fishburne explodes, and some of it being really cool, with Goggins' head and spine being removed from his body. The look of the Predators is really cool too, and there are a ton of callbacks to earlier films. Some subtle, like hearing about Dutch in his 1987 mission, and some being more direct, like having some of the score directly taken from the first film, or at time having it remixed slightly. They even go as far as to play Long Tall Sally over the end credits. And even though I like it, as with a lot of franchises giving heavy callbacks, your mileage will vary depending on how into it you are. Our survivors regroup and now know they're being hunted before running into Lawrence Fishburne's insane survivor. He talks to invisible friends and gives some exposition on where they are. He's clearly having a great time with the role and of course eventually turns on them, trying to gas them to death and take all their stuff. He's killed a couple predators already and is looking to survive longer. He gets absolutely obliterated, which is kind of a letdown as he's introduced with a stealth system and wearing the mask of one of the fallen predators. Crazy or not, I expected him to put up some sort of fight or last stand. The remaining survivors make their way out of Nolan's base of operations, which is some sort of crashed ship, and we get a few quick kills to thin the group down. The Spetsnaz soldier, who ends up being way cooler and more endearing than he had any right to be, takes out one of the predators with him by blowing up the entire escape tunnel. The next scene is kind of controversial, as in the preview we see a whole slew of red predator aiming reticles, but when the scene in question comes up during the movie, it's down to one and there are only 2 active predators left. Walt Goggins' inmate character jumps on the beast and gives him the old prison shank treatment, giving the rest of the group time to escape before he gets some important bones removed. As the group goes along, we get a scene that is what a lot of fans probably wanted in 1987. In the original, Sonny Landham's stoic soldier Billy allows the final 3 of Anna, Dutch, and Poncho to get to the choppa, and stays behind to fight the Predator one-on-one. We don't see any of the fight and only hear his ludicrously loud and echoey scream. But here we get the full fight, High Noon style. Hanzo, the Yakuza member of the ragtag group, uses the sword he found at Nolan's and faces off against one of the 2 remaining Predators. It's a fun scene, even with the Predator dance fighting like he's waiting for a Mortal Kombat match to start, and Hanzo was able to take his opponent out, just unfortunately at the cost of his own life. With not much hope left, the final trio head back to base camp and decide to let the captured Predator go. The enemy of my enemy is my friend and all that. We get a brief Predator fight, and while he has a valiant effort, the, well, let's call him good Predator, falls to the 2.0 version. While attempting to escape, Edwin gets caught in a bear trap looking thing, and Royce wants to leave him. Isabel stays, and we are shown the monster that Edwin really is.
It's a neurotoxin. There's so many to choose from around here.
Royce comes back and takes down Edwin while also figuring out a way to use him as bait as the final fight begins. The final problem I have with the movie is that they just cram the last third of the original film into like less than 10 minutes. Royce uses all the tricks we saw used in the first film, with tricking the vision sensors of the final Predator, cooling his body temp while he hides, and he uses hand-to-hand weapons to fight it. I enjoy most of the callbacks this movie presents, but this one feels off and boring. They could have found 100 different ways to have the climax take place, but decided to do the rehash of an almost perfect film. It's kind of a letdown. Royce wins with the help of a nicely timed shot from Isabel, and our heroes are left to find a way off the planet just as they see more supplies and parachutes coming down. Another hunt is imminent, but they are a little more prepared this time. The movie did well at the box office, taking in $127 million on a $40 million budget. That's not summer blockbuster numbers, and it was swallowed handily by Minions being released the same week, Toy Story 3 still raking in money from the previous month, and Inception eating its lunch the following week. The behind-the-camera team includes producer Robert Rodriguez, and if you look, you can see his style all over the movie. Director Nimrod Antal has had a small but fun career with the thriller Vacancy, the action vehicle Armored with Jean Reno and Fishburne again, and most recently 2 episodes of the current Stranger Things season. Writers Michael Finch and Alex Litvak have lived almost exclusively in the action realm and did a good job understanding the characters the Thomas brothers created 2 decades prior. Predators doesn't match the out-of-nowhere success of the first movie, nor has it hit the cult classic of the first sequel, but it does get unfairly sandwiched within the category of other Predator movies. If you haven't seen it in a while, give it a whirl. This dumb-looking dog does hunt.
You in my house, motherfucker!
Why don't you shut the fuck up? Oh, thank God.
Fight!